Good afternoon, and welcome to the Museo's online afternoon of poetry. I'm Carol Latham, the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Museum and Cultural Center in Anaheim. And it is our wish that you and your family and circle of concern are all well. The Museo is a cultural and community hub with a mission to engage the community in exploring and celebrating our culture, our heritage, and the arts. And we do this through a number of creative programming like this, events and exhibits. Just so that you know, this presentation is being recorded on Facebook. It is my pleasure this afternoon to introduce the host of this afternoon's poetry session, Marcus Omari. He's a dedicated poet, writer, and performer. He has been featured on Verses and Flow on TV1 and has authored several poetry chapbooks and contributed poetic vocals for various multi-genre music albums. Marcus is now living in Santa Ana, California, where he teaches at Creative Writing Conservatory in Orange County School of the Arts. He co-directs the annual Boca de Oro Literary Festival, coordinates the Poetry Out Loud program, and heads the rowdy artistic activist collective Poetic Reform Party. So we invite you to sit back, get comfortable as we enjoy some youth poetry from youth poets presented by Marcus Omari. Marcus?
All right. All right. We can snap, we can clap, we can yell, we can stomp our feet. Joining me today, first of all, thank you all, Carol, for allowing myself to host such an amazing, engaging, and enjoyable event. I'm absolutely excited. I do a lot of writing, performing on my own, but there's nothing I appreciate more than the opportunity to hear from the people who are pushing me out of the way. And I gladly turn over the page. I gladly turn over the stage to these amazing writers. And it's such a joy to hear where they're coming from and the things that they are experiencing and want to speak about. So it is myself joined by the leaders and really the focus and the reason why we're here. So Voice and Vibrations, we have Ashley, we have Christine, we have Alexandra. You all can actually take your mics off. It's just us, guys. We can go. This isn't like class anymore, right? I know at class we mute everyone and it's like, I don't want to hear a thing. I don't want to hear a drop unless it's kind of noisy behind you. So this is what we'll do. This is really an open mic, an open workshop, an open conversation. Really relaxed. I have a few notes in front of me. I have a few poems in front of me. So I'm with you through this whole thing. We're all in different cities. We're all in different spaces. It may be raining outside, but there's no place I'd rather be right here. So this is how we're going to do it. If you want me to, I'll lead off with a little poem to kind of warm things up a little bit. Everyone's kind of nodding their head like, yeah, do that, right? I'll lead off with a poem, just kind of check vocals. Everyone can hear, let you know where we're going, and then we'll slide into the poetry. I have three of you all. We have a couple more poets that may join us later on, but if not, since I know two of you are sharing academic locations, I'm gonna split you up a little bit. I'll probably have Christine go first, and then Ashley, then Alexandra, and then we'll run it back again, sharing our poetry with a few questions. Then I'm just gonna open it up for a discussion where we're just gonna chat about what we want to do in life, what's so great about writing, what's dope about poetry or not dope about poetry. And then we'll wrap it out with a few more poems and it's checking out. So you guys are like the superstars and the guinea pigs for this kind of workshop. You guys cool with that? All right, good. Like they shared before, this is being recorded, but who cares? Just make sure we watch our language in terms of profanity. We don't want that out there forever. Also, if there's anything that you're sharing that may be sensitive to you that you don't want someone 2 months from now to be able to click on and hear you read about, then slide to the other poem about your dog or flying a kite or something like that. But as long as it's something that meant something to you, that's coming from your heart, please share that. Anything else I want to touch on really quick? All types of poetry. Yes, whatever you got. Shakespeare, sonnets, villanelles, freestyle, slam. It's all good to you. Don't have to be memorized. I think I sent a few tips. Everyone's going to take a deep breath. We'll do a quick deep breath exercise for myself so I can relax on that. And then we'll get going. Do you guys have any questions right now? Can I take a sip of water? All right, cool. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to ask this again. Does anyone have any questions? Let me get a verbal response. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
Oh.
No, there we go. Listen, listen. I'm already speaking right now, so I'm warming up. The more you answer verbally my questions, the less anxious you'll be when you start sharing your poem. So do you guys mind if I have a sip of water?
No.
No.
All right, there we go. Perfect. Let's one of the exercises I do a lot when we start poetry workshops, this isn't really a workshop, is we talk about where we're from. You know, people like to get comfortable talking about their home, their surroundings, senses, so on and so forth. There's a poem that means a lot to me that I've shared quite often, but it helps me warm up and makes me comfortable when I'm in an environment with people that I may not know. It's called On My Block. Can I share that? Can you guys snap me in? All right. On my block, old lady fuchsia house dress, nicotine stained slippers don't come out for nothing but to water her lawn. She creak down daily just for to be dragging that bright industrial yellow sprinkler to the west side of her rusty real estate, just a wishing on some growth back by that tattered old wood fence. Only thing seemed to sprout up by morning, BMO cigarette butts. 14-year-old daughter got herself a 19-year-old boy fiend, liking to bring her Marlboros and Kiwi Mad Dog round about midnight. When grandmama be asleep, mama be on the phone with new man who got Cadillac and one of them good jobs down at the auto plant. Every early Saturday morning, old lady fuchsia house dress, nicotine stained slippers, slobs Olympic prayers that hurtle like gale over plates of eggs and grits and bacon and sausage and toast, blackened toast, prayers that hurtle over that old wood fence and come crawling up into our yard while my father be out on the front porch rocking the morning paper to sleep. Prayers for her grandchild's safety, for her daughter's happiness, health for her own self, and for them children to stay the hell up out of her pecan tree. See, my father been mentioning more often lately how he fixing to go back there, going back there with my Uncle Larry and plank up a new fence, low enough to the ground for to keep the dogs in, but high enough for to keep old lady fuchsia prayers on her side of the world. See, my father say he got his own home full of hope and worry to be dealing with. Ain't got no time for silly prayers. Christine, I think it's because that sprinkler be wetting up my daddy's shed, you know, wearing on the paint. And I know for a fact that my father hates the smell of blackened toast and prayers in the morning. Ooh, that's it. So let's do it like this. Let's reverse it a little bit. Do any of you have any questions about that particular poem? Does anything that came to mind, anything you like, anything that stood out? Rarely do I ever open it up for questions on my poetry, but anybody got any questions on that one?
Wait, you wrote the poem, right?
Yeah, I did. That's important.
Well, that was very impressive. I really liked it. I've noticed, like, I've listened to your poetry before and stuff. You have like a very, like, the style that's like very like evocative. Like, I can like see a lot of like images in my like head when I listen to your poetry. And I was like wondering, like, how do you like conjure up those images and then like write them down.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to answer that. I'm going to answer that poem, that question. That's a great question. I'll begin with my fears. I was always nervous sharing my poetry because I knew I had a narrative style, but I didn't know what narrative poetry was. So I just knew that when I was doing I was like, man, I don't like to share mine because mine doesn't sound like some of the stuff that's, hanging out on the mic, right? So that was the first thing I had to get over by educating myself about the different styles of poetry, right? And when I was like, oh, I didn't have the label for what I was doing, but that's actually a thing, right? So that made me comfortable to write more like that. The next one in terms of the style, you made me think when I went to Washington, D.C., and I performed at this spot, a very famous spot called Bus Boys and Poets out there. When you get your license and COVID goes away and you can fly, go check out Best Boys and Poets in D.C. And I performed a poem on stage. And I remember I walked off and I had that same feeling again of performing in a foreign or environment where I didn't know everyone. And I remember someone came up and complimented me afterwards. And the compliment sounded much like your question, where they said, everyone seemed like they had a 2D image. I don't know what she said, 2 or 3D image. She was like, for some reason, when you describe things, your language went all the way around and it gave a full picture. You could see all the angles. And I'm listening just completely overwhelmed by the compliment. But to answer your question with those examples, it's this. I knew early on that what drew me to language and what drew me to poetry was the description, was simple words like, what was enchanted? When I was like 9 years old, that was like my word of the year. Everything was enchanted. Everything I wrote was the enchanting forest, the enchanting eyes, right? You have your favorite words. And then when I learned how to build it, I just fell in love with telling stories and pulling in images and senses. And Ashley knows that sometimes when I teach classes, that's one of the first things I go for is let's bring in senses, let's bring in imagery, things that we write about that helps other people connect. So I try to use phrases, colors, feelings, smells with burnt toast that other people can relate to in their homes. If they've never smelt burnt toast, maybe they've smelt burnt sauces, maybe they've smelt burnt oil, they can smell something and that helps pull them in. That's it, but thank you, yeah, checking it out, yeah. Anybody else? No? Yes?
Like Alexandra, I really liked the rhythm of your poem and how your performance is very flowy and like an art in itself. And I noticed that you have it memorized like by heart. So I was also wondering if you tend to improvise often on poems that you memorize.
Okay, that's a great question. And we're going to turn this over too, because I don't want this to be about me, but I know this was just like our warm-up conversation. I was really good at I was really good at memorizing my poems early on because I was on stage a lot and I was competing a lot. I came from a speech and debate background where I was memorizing 8 to 10 minute speeches, 4 or 5 of them, every weekend. So memorizing a 3-minute poem or 2-minute poem was something that came quite easy. After a while, I wasn't doing that. So memorization took work, but those was one of the first things I did was get the memorization down so I could look up and then I could improvise. It's hard to improvise when you're reading, your poem, right? But when I had it memorized, one thing, as I was sharing it right now, I was like, man, we just started this workshop. How do I make sure that everyone's engaged? And as I was reciting the poem, here's a secret, who cares if it's being recorded forever? As I was reciting this poem, I was thinking, whose name do I want to use? Do I want to use Ashley's? Do I use Alexandra's? Do I want to use Christine? This is going through my mind. I'm making this decision as I'm reciting the poem, as I'm giving you verbal and facial expressions. And I made a decision that said, I'm going to use Christine's name because Christine's going to go first after me. So I want to make sure I connect her in. And that's what memorization helps do. It means that once you got it locked down, you can think about all the different things in the world, right? I've rehearsed it so much. I know where my eye contact goes. I know where my gestures are. So now I can just free flow with that. So those are my tips with that. You don't have to memorize everything, but the more you commit your poem to memory and practice and rehearsal, the more you can play around with your audience. That makes sense? All right. Ashley, you ain't got no questions. So, Christine, I'm going to turn it over to you to share one of your poems. And as a prep to the other poets, we're just going to do the same thing. When you're done, we're going to share some praise and then maybe ask you one or two questions about your poem. Is that okay? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, me, I bring to you now a special guest coming from Oxford, right? Anaheim. Woo! Oxford. Give it up for Oxford. I was at Oxford last year or the year before for your poetry slam competition. That was absolutely amazing. You guys blew me away. So I knew I wanted to get a few of you poets back out here. So looking forward to hear what you share. The floor is all yours, Christine. Oh, okay. Wait. Christine, I'm having a difficulty hearing you. Is anyone else having difficulty hearing her? All right, perfect.
Okay. Is
there
it
you go. Yeah,
okay.
It's better.
My poem is called "The Girl Who Speaks Wildflowers." Okay. I met a girl who speaks wildflowers. Words like petals spilling from her smiling lips like water. She spills to me her life, her stories, her doubts, her dreams, her fears, her worries. She spoke so long I felt I could get lost in the sound of her honesty. But the dreaded moment came when her words trickled to a stop. She looked at me and she waited. I carefully plucked my words, a bouquet of roses, trimmed, exact, neatly wrapped in ribbons, dethorned, not a single leaf out of place. Couldn't compare to her gift of wildflowers, thorns and weeds, dirt and all. I met a girl who reminded me of a language I did not know. She spoke in wildflowers, lovely, vivacious, charming. I spoke in roses, pretty, monotonous, plastic. I met a girl who made me ashamed to hand her my roses, roses she had seen countless times, enough times to mean nothing. I met a girl who reminded me of how sometimes I want to step up to the mic and scream like the spirit of Yoko Ono has inhibited my body and flooded me with impenetrable courage just to prove I have a voice, just to prove I have a choice. But when the mic gets placed in front of me, I treat it like another chance to pretend, to talk about my problems in front of strangers and tell myself I'll solve them. How much longer can I lie to myself? If only her words would snap me awake. If only someone would pull the emergency brake on this godforsaken train. But I am the conductor, and I need to stop falling asleep. I met a girl who speaks in wildflowers. I hope that someday I'll finally learn the language and be able to return the favor. Thank you.
Woo! Oh my God, I am sweating over here. It's so good. That poem was so good. All right, so let me back off before I lay all the praise on you. Anyone got anything they want to share, support or questions for Christine? Yeah.
I thought that your usage of metaphors and figurative language in your poetry was incredible, and they helped to really contribute to like a really strong sense of imagery. So seeing like these clear images, I'm wondering what your poem was based off of.
Oh, thank you, first of all. This poem was inspired by real events. I was in a voice call with a girl who I didn't know very well, but we were friendly, and she talked to me about a lot of things, and it was just really honest and refreshing, and I wanted to be able to speak like that, to be able to share as honestly and genuinely as she did. So that's what inspired this poem.
Amazing. Great question, Ashley. That answers some things for me as well. Anything from you, Alex, before I jump in there?
I thought the poem was like absolutely beautiful, and I don't know, I just it really just like hit me in my chest. Like I know Christine, right? So like I don't know, there's something about her poetry that like every time like I hear it, it just like really tightens up in my chest, and I'm like, oh my god. If like although it's like a specific moment, like I think one of the great things about poetry is that like I think like even if someone's talking about something really specific, like there's something always about it that we can like take away and we can apply to our own lives, and it feels very like universal in that sense.
Yes, I agree, and to go in on that, it made me emotional. It really did. And I say this, and this is something that I challenge my class with, when I say, do you believe that there are things that you can write about from your age, from your experience, from your surroundings that reach beyond your experiences and age and reach a different genre? And someone say yes, and someone say no. Listen, Christine, you're still in high school, right?
Yeah.
I'm grown and far past that. Whatever you experienced has touched and moved me, generations, ahead of you. I loved not only the delicacy of the repetition of, I met a girl who spoke to me in wildflowers. Was that the line? Or am I messing it up? It was something like that. Listen, every time I heard that, the way you read it, it was a reset button for me. That was like, oh, wow, here we go again. And you're gonna lay into some more really nice verbiage and language. There was a line in there that said, spoke the lost or the last sound of her honesty. Oh, well, I had to put myself on mute because I'm over here making all kinds of noise as you were doing that, right? Like I said, and just like Ashley said, the way that you were turning your phrases and your metaphors into me also with the delicateness of which you shared it, which matched your writing, I was really blown away. And to learn a little bit more about the poem only adds to it as well. So thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the imagery that she presented, so there was a lot of innocence to it, but at the same time, there was a lot of power in her words, beautifully. And I love the comparison between the wildflowers and the more traditional roses. You think of wildflowers as maybe being just things that you pick up along the way as against a more cultured, cultivated rose, but they both in their own way have such beauty.
Yeah, good call, Carol, between I guess you hate to call it common, but our familiarity with a rose versus our curiosity about wildflowers. You know what I'm saying? You got roses that they're beautiful, but you see them all the time. Also, we've become familiar with them versus wildflowers. And there was now I got to go. Carol, you just lit me back up again. I can spend all day praising each one of you for your poems, but there is one thing that said flowers. I love how you chose different flowers to express different types of communication and how that extended metaphor lasted throughout the poem. I'm a sucker for extended metaphors. If you drop a metaphor and you can stretch it and then stretch and stretch some more, I'm like, wow. So it was really good for me. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Really well done.
Kind of sliding back into something I shared earlier where I said, hey, it's a pleasure hosting things like this because I get an opportunity to hear from the people who are pushing me off the page and off the stage. I bring to you Ashley from OSHA, who I know, but I am just always excited to hear her work and her writing. And I'm also excited to lead the page and the stage and give her all the room in the world to blossom and take this craft to places that I can only dream of. So snaps, a round of applause for Ashley.
Okay, this poem is called A Teenage Tesseract. In a daughter universe, everything is and is not. When the Big Bang occurred, their world simultaneously became nothing and everything to them. In the quantum world they call Earth, they exist, yet they do not. But it is not a decision that is up to them. The inhabitants do not like the word indecisive. In writing, authors often break what is known as a fourth wall. The inhabitants are capable of doing that beyond the barriers of the written page and instead stretch those of a crafted world. And when they do, everything changes. The entire circle of light is disturbed, moving in ripples, disrupting the realm's fragility and peace. Whenever our inhabitants decide to break the fourth dimension, suddenly their bar stools need an extra leg. There's so much more space. The earth screeches to a halt. Unfortunately, they can't hear anyone say anything distinctly. No judgment or hate can seep in through the cracks. But this is no way of living, so that is why the inhabitants break down the fifth dimension. In these circumstances, time is no longer fragmented, but rather an infinite line stretching from horizon to horizon. Light returns to its familiar ways, and in the fifth dimensional world, a tesseract simply becomes another means of transportation. And everything is so right and wrong, good and bad, easy and hard, and their third dimension just seems too difficult to understand, so perhaps they are indecisive after all. Like the teenage girls who can't decide what they want at a coffee shop, and suddenly there are a million different universes for each beverage and topping variation from the menu. The teenage girls tesseract to analyze each option and choice, like whether they should have gone out that night. It happened. Or whether they should have texted that boy or posted that picture. They are the masters of questioning their own powers and blessings. Perhaps that is why their universe revolves around a daughter rather than a son. Perhaps the souls of teenage girls and the inhabitants' earth are of the same stardust. Both mean nothing and everything to its inhabitants simultaneously. Thank you.
Oh man. Okay, let me lead in and I'm gonna open it up a little bit. Because first of all, what I love about how Ashley embodies her writing is you can't help but express how you felt when you were writing and you were reading it. And I love seeing the connection and how poets get excited about what they've written. And you can hear it in your voice, your connection to your thoughts and your metaphors and your images. So I just love to hear the expressiveness of that. But I'll turn it back over if Christine, what can I ask the obvious question? I don't have a whole lot of history with like Marvel movies and things like that. I've heard a tesseract, but I don't know what that is. I've heard it before. What's a tesseract? Someone tell me.
So basically, well, I guess first off, I should kind of like reference what this poem was like kind of based off. So it was based off of the novel A Wrinkle in Time, I believe. And so in that novel, they bring up the concept of a tesseract where when you think of time and space, you think of it as a linear line in terms of the dimensions. So the theory of a tesseract suggests that instead of going from place to place on this linear line, you wrinkle it and you fold it. So instead of going on the linear line, you're jumping across this folded place of space and time.
Gotcha. So, I've been educated. Christine, Alex.
Like Mr. Omari said, I really liked the dynamicness of your performance and how you were reading it. It was really captivating, and I loved your reference to A Wrinkle in Time. My question for you, is there anything like specific that inspired it? Like maybe a situation or
why that poem?
Yeah. Well, I think the way I came up with this poem, like the way the idea came to me, it was a very like distinct moment. I remember I was just in the shower and thinking about like what I should write about next. And I recently finished the Wrinkle in Time book for like the second time, and it got me really interested in just kind of space physics in general, and I just started researching it. So as I did, I came upon this concept of a daughter universe, which is basically just this theory that there are different universes for every outcome that we make. So there's an infinite amount of parallel universes within our world as we know it. And so using the name itself, a daughter universe, I decided to connect it back to the idea of a teenage girl and like the different representations that they have in media. And so I tie these two concepts that I'm really passionate about together into this huge metaphor. So that's what this poem was based off of.
Cool breeze. Any other feedback or questions from you, Alexandra?
Yeah, I just really loved it, and also I really like the whole like daughter universe thing.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times like women in general, we don't really feel like empowered and stuff. And I don't know, there's something about like just saying daughter universe that really feels like empowering. Yeah.
Listen, I'm gonna second that one. As soon as you said daughter universe, I was like, wow, like that phrasing in and of itself is just a power right there. Carol, anything? No?
No, just I am kind of at a loss for words because it is such a powerful poem. I think, you know, this shouldn't be coming from a high school person, you know? This is so mature beyond your years. Yeah. Snap, 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 snap.
Listen, and I guess I should have prepped everyone in the room for the level. You know, again, I've heard Christine's writing before, so not Christine. I've heard Ashley's writing before, so I knew she was coming strong. And I knew from what I had heard at Oxford, I was like, yeah, he has some talented writers as well. But for each of you, again, we could snap, we could praise, and we could ask a million questions. And we're so thankful for you all for sharing. So rounding it out in our first kind of go round, without further ado, our next Oxford representative bringing it home. Give it for snaps and stumps for Alexandra.
Okay, so this is my a poem I wrote when the quarantine like first began, and it's called A Day in the Life When You Start Counting Seconds. It is a sort of sludge, something slowly creeping until I look over my shoulder and see it there, pulsing, alive, and everything I swore it was not. It requires my acquiescence, and I crave its excess, even though I should not. It tells me, look at all the beautiful things, and look at all the things that could be consoled. The nest built on the patio umbrella stretchers, the blossoming roses reaching for sunlight's kiss, and the cat hidden under the shade provided by orange trees. My eyes meet them all. It goes on without permission and takes a scalpel to my skull, trying to create an entrance. I could go after it, but staying is what I do best. Spend wasted days writing away until the tip of my pen refuses to assemble words. The ink cartridge ran out again. Then the consolable come to mind, and how little I have done other than turn on the TV. Nothing but blaring breaking news fills the screen. I wish I could make this beautiful. Could this be beautiful? The sludge, not sludge, comes to mind once in a while. Closing my eyes does not look dark anymore. My eyelids show me the outdoors, contagious laughter and celebration. I lie on my left side, counting the seconds it takes for me to fall asleep. It's not all bad, right? Are we still consolable? Could it be beautiful? Maybe it could be. Maybe it could be.
my gosh, man. Amazing, amazing writing. So I loved, again, first of all, I love powerful opening lines, opening words, or somewhere in the beginning stanza. We want to be all stanza. Something that hooks me. And you all had it. Christine from the girl who spoke to her in Wildflowers, Ashley with the Tesseract and the Daughter Universe, with yourself, Alexandra, with for me it was sludge. The use in comparison of sludge from the beginning, I was like, oh wow, okay. It's not a word you hear all the time, right? And then how you dropped it in there immediately and then tied it in and spun it and brought it back later on. I was appreciating each and every colorful image and metaphor in between. I have a few things that I want to throw out there, but if anybody else wants to add, I guess my question would be, you said it was about the pandemic, or was it brought about because you had so much time? Explain to me what was the origin of the poem?
So like when the pandemic first started, I kind of felt like a bit unproductive, and it just felt like everything was like happening to me, but I wasn't doing anything to make things happen. And yeah, I just kind of felt like I could be doing more, and that I wasn't doing it. So that's where kind of the poem came from.
Way to take that situation and create something beautiful from it. Yeah.
A whole lot of isolation in how you were feeling in that poem. I also got the non-productiveness of what was happening, but there was a sense of isolation and a sense of maybe even a little bit of guilt, because you're feeling that maybe you should be doing something, doing more, but you're not. And so it's that heaviness that comes with, and that weightiness that comes with that feeling of being unproductive and feeling guilty about it.
Gotcha. Anyone else? Go ahead. I saw Christine started speaking and Ashley's hand went up. Either one of you, go right ahead.
Okay. I really liked, first of all, sludge. Yeah, it was just, it hooked me in, and yeah, it, like Mr. Omari said, it's a very unusual word, and it was a really powerful word. I really enjoyed the imagery, and especially the rhythm. You were reading it, and it was very rhythmic, and I really liked that. I really liked, the imagery, and I liked that it was kind of universal. I could definitely relate to some of those feelings, and I was really impressed by your poem.
Yes, impressed is a good word for that. Yeah. Ashley.
Yeah. Adding on to that, I felt that your poem was really accessible and relatable. I feel like a lot of people shared the feelings that you had when this quarantine began. So I was just kind of wondering what your purpose was when you were writing this poem, like what you wanted to get across to the reader.
I guess my purpose was like that things can be changed, like even if you don't feel like the most productive now, because like in my last lines I was like could we make this beautiful and stuff, and like I brought up like yeah it's possible, but like if you don't feel you're the most productive right now, you shouldn't feel like it can't be done, or that it's impossible. Like, because like for me, I wouldn't call myself like a pessimistic person or like necessarily an optimistic person either. I think I'm just like really hopeful that things will get better, and yeah, That's how I kind of feel.
Oh, well, at some point, I think we all kind of jump back and forth between those two feelings. Something else that came out, I think when Christine was talking, was the word acquiesce. Another word I fell in love with. I was like, man, but sometimes when people use, I'm just going to call it a larger word like acquiesce, people can go, oh, that's why, poetry's too over my head. I loved how you used it in your poem where, like Ashley said, it was accessible. It was there. And even if you don't hear the word acquiesce all the time, or didn't understood it completely, something about the way you wrapped it and couched it in the language before and after made a large word like acquiesce actually all right. And just the sound acquiesce really made you feel good. So it was chosen right, not only in its appropriateness as a word, but as a feeling as well. I think we really came across. And just because you said it, I really did like the repetition of those lines with the quick flip at the end when you said, I wish I could make this better. I wish I could make this beautiful. Could this be beautiful? Yeah. Like that. Yeah, anything else? Guys, you see how that went? That was round one. It was that quick. Now everyone's comfortable. Everyone's gotten it out. There's no need for me to do another poem, I don't think. If you guys are ready and willing, I say we run through, another piece from each one of you. Is this all right? Same thing, we'll go Christine, then Ashley, then Alex, and then afterwards, I'll probably ask you really quickly what the piece was about or what the origin is from, and then we'll move on to the next. Cool breeze. Christine, are you all set?
Yeah.
All right, let me log in. Oh, and just for this one, when Christine's on, we'll go mute, and then as soon as Christine's done, unmute so she can hear all your snaps and claps, right? So Alex, come off of mute real quick so she can hear this. Don't go to mute yet. Don't go to mute yet. Ashley, Alex, don't go to mute yet. Now, exactly. Now, round of applause, snaps and claps for Christine. Woo! All right, now we go to mute.
Okay. This poem was written about a year ago. It's called Family Reunion, and some of you might have already heard it, but okay. It's suffocating. I hide in the kitchen. It's the only place I know how to be. It's the only place they expect me to be. I've accepted it. Lips sealed, hands busy, I forget. The male cousins run amok, making violent noises and screaming their little heads off. It's fine. Until the kitchen work is over and I am scurried to the living room where adults can fawn over how I've grown. It's suffocating. How's school? Fine. But would you accept any other answer? What do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know. Better than disappointing you. Got a boyfriend? No. I wonder when that'll start getting old. Then it's close your legs, sit up straight, hands in your lap, chin up, eyes bright, smile. No, thank you. Sorry, it's suffocating. If you think about it, family reunions are kind of like dog shows. Everyone dolls their kid up in their best clothes, and they talk about achievements as if they were their own. They might even make their kid do some sort of fancy trick. Why don't you play a little something on the piano? Why don't you draw a cute picture for us? Why don't you sing for us? I get paraded around like a sideshow circus attraction. All of a sudden, people have great things to say about me. I wonder if all adults are hypocrites. Oh, she's so hardworking, studies so well. She's so bright. She wants to be a writer, did you know? Are you trying to trade my broken dreams for their pity? You told me I wouldn't make enough money. I'd have such a difficult life. Oh, but you know what? That's okay. As long as you're happy, we'll always be there for you anyway. If I told you I don't dream anymore, would I be good enough for you then? Sorry, it's suffocating. Thank you.
Woo! All right, Christine, your opportunity to share the purpose, meaning, or origin of the poem, please.
So I wrote this a while ago, and I also performed it a while ago at my school's poetry slam. But
I knew it sounded familiar. I was like, that's what I was waiting to hear. It was so good that night. Keep going.
But basically, there was this one incident in particular where I felt really frustrated about my dreams and aspirations clashing with what my family wanted for me, and how I was expected to be at a family reunion where my family comes together and parents expect their kids to be perfect, to show off for aunts and uncles. And yeah, so those are the feelings that went into this poem.
Gotcha. Perfect. Anybody else got anything quick they want to share before we roll into the next poem? I got a million.
I think the analogy with the dog show is perfect.
Yeah.
Just perfect. Anyone who has ever seen one of those, Westminster dog show things and how they, parade the dogs as they come out will understand exactly how you felt.
Yeah, you nailed it with that one. Anyone else? And you had a question in there about, are all adults hypocrites? Yes, we are. I grew into my hypocrisy because I had the same questions. I was like, I hope I'm not going to be like that. And actually, I'm like, I guess as you get older, you can be a hypocrite. You write it off. You write it off as a rite of passage. And also, I loved the repetition of the usage of "it's suffocating." Oh, every time you dropped it, it was so nice. And in my mind, I started like thinking, I wish I could see this on the page, just so I could see how Christine like broke down her stanzas or what her line breaks were and see where she placed "it's suffocating." Like, was it at the end of a stanza or was it a standalone line in between stanzas? Like, you had me started thinking on a deeper level in terms of your structure because of how effective the line was. So that's my last question before we move on to the next one. Was it a standalone line? Was it at the beginning? Were you using it at the beginning of a stanza before you put it in there, or was it at the end?
It was standalone.
Woo! Wow. Yes. And the way you read it, I saw it. Perfect. Good job, man. All right. Rolling next. Back to the break and right back in here. Snaps and stomps for Ashley. Give it up for Ashley from Ojo. All right. Cool. Mute.
Okay, so this poem is called Albert, and I actually read it in Mr. Omari's class. So, yeah. Albert had lived in our neighborhood for at least 5,000 years. He groomed every bush and tree into existence, driving the lawnmower through our backyards with one hand and laying down the pavement with the other, slapping tar and concrete down as if it were the law. Al breathed more than life into our street. He pronounced color into infinity through language and motion, knocking door to door to remind people to set our sprinklers for dawn and asked how our sons and daughters were doing in college. He somehow knew each of them by name. Most days he sat in his driveway, round belly spilling out of his shirt, hanging heavy over the hem of his pants, waving to every car and passerby. He answered to every question and quest, scratching inside his graying beard to find just the right answers. The man had no fear. He created this kingdom, and when you are the king of a neighborhood, you cannot afford to be afraid of your own people. He sent his sons after us like knights galloping on horseback on electric bikes, offering little boys and girls a ride according to their code of chivalry. They would ride off into the sunset until our mothers called us home for dinner. His daughters were nymphs, taking the children up to the hills to let them take turns on the wooden swings, healing scraped knees and elbows with butterfly kisses and pieces of chocolate their fingers, would weave flower crowns of dandelions for all the little princesses and accept engagement rings for men disguised as little boys wearing superhero capes. They all had the same magic as their father. But since I've moved to this neighborhood 10 years ago, Albert has seemed to age another 1,000. His hair is less gray now. In fact, there's a lot less hair than there used to be. The chasms between his eyes and his all-knowing beard have deepened. It takes him a much longer time for him to search for all the answers. Perhaps the old man at the top of our mountain can no longer make the journey down as easily as he did when he wasn't quite as old. The path is, after all, rocky and steep. It must be hard on his knees after holding up the weight of our world for so long. We are no Atlas. Albert is certainly no Hercules, but if Albert finds that he must move on, we will meet him right before he does at the edge of our world. He can pass his burden over onto our shoulders, and we will keep his neighborhood upright as he has done so for thousands of years. We'll recognize that we have been spoiled by Albert's strength as our joints creaking in opposition swell to fill the spaces that they were meant for. I plan to finish this poem when Albert is gone, meaning that this poem will never truly be finished. Instead, I'll gather up all the knights and the nymphs and the princesses and the princes, and we'll write these words in chalk on the pavement that he built thousands of years ago. Thank you.
Woo! All right, Ashley, I turn it over to you. Let's hear, give us briefly the purpose, origin, inspiration for this poem.
Right. So something I really wanted to experiment with this poem was just kind of like extending metaphors as much as possible. So this was based off of this person that lives in my neighborhood, and everybody kind of knows him. His name's Albert, and he kind of just does odd jobs around the neighborhood. He mows our lawns. He just talks, make sure that we're all doing okay. And he and his family are very, I guess, people that are well known in the neighborhood. We all kind of know them, and we all kind of have interacted with them at some point. So I just wanted to kind of use him as this image in my poem and kind of talk about what he's done in our neighborhood, because I feel like we don't appreciate Albert enough. And like, let's talk about Albert. He's amazing and he's such a cool guy. So this is what this poem kind of was, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
And I loved how you took and paid homage to, whether it be a gardener or our lawn caretakers or anyone around the neighborhood the people who do the jobs that we often overlook that keep our lives running more easily. And not only that you paid homage and acknowledgement within the poem, but that you went deeper in terms of the acknowledgement of not only does he do these things, he has a family, and this is what his family does, and this is what his daughters, and it gave it a completely different appreciation for the people that we may look over all the time. Like, everyone knows an Albert in their neighborhood, but how often do we think about where Albert's from, what his family's from, what his son's up to, what his daughter's up to? So I really like that. Yeah. Anyone else?
I just want to comment on how you perform, because I really admire it. I love how you use your hands to be very expressive, and yeah, I don't know. I aspire to perform like you.
Wow, so do I, Alexandra. So do I. Anything else? No?
I did really like your use of the extended metaphor, and how you kind of built Albert up into this really amazing heroic figure. And I love the way you incorporated fantasy elements in that. I'm a fan of fantasy, and I just really love the imagery with the princesses and the nymphs and the princes. And yeah, I was really impressed by your performance as well. I love the dynamicness, and yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll say on that too, that was something I learned early on. If it means something to you, bring it into your poetry and explore it. It may not hit the first or second time, depending on the audience, but someone's going to appreciate it. I am a sucker for mythology. I mean, I could be like this, doing all kinds of, and then I go, oh, did someone just say Atlas or Hercules? Did someone just drop a Shakespeare line in there? Oh, did someone just say acquiesce? Like, there's certain things that draw you back in. So when I heard those extended metaphors that had to do with mythology, I was like, okay, great, here we go. And then I started tying in not only the hyperbole in terms of how long Albert had been around and working in the area, but also that tie into how long gods exist or live, as well. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. When you said he's no Atlas, and we're certainly no Hercules or something like that. So sorry, gotcha, that's what I got. Anyone else? If not, we're gonna roll right into Alexandra. All right, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, snaps and stomps for Alexandra.
So this poem, I wrote it actually like 3 days ago, when my sister and I were like carving pumpkins, and it's still in my notebook, so it's like really new. So yeah, I don't know, like this is
Give it your all. Let us
starts,
go ahead.
Could she increase her volume just a bit? It seems a little bit lower.
Or
can you hear me now?
I can hear you. It's a little muffled. What you can do, this is a simple, like you're talking about performance things. Take a deep breath, bring your shoulders back, and then kind of project, your vocals in there so we can pick it up. Because there's only so much we can do in terms of volume. And now I got this. I'm gonna put myself on mute because we got someone over here cutting trees down. But I'd say just project a little bit more when you share it this time. All right? Cool breeze.
The moon devours its last golden minute when you come home from the pumpkin patch and I'm a child again. We slip back into photographs of Halloweens that have passed, but a rugged skin remains. Please, imagine if we started again, what decisions could be corrected. We place the pumpkins on the dining room table. I graph where I'd like the incisions to be made. Look at how I can obliterate something perfect, something that didn't anticipate my touch, and a carving tool to its rind. And there's you, my sister. The smile on you spreads just as wide as the one on your cherubic pumpkin. I love how your eyes crinkle when your teeth show. I love how it does not bother you that so much sand has fallen through the hourglass like it bothers me. I love how you live each moment in its entirety. Impartial to the future, my hands pull at the pulp inside the pumpkin, the seeds, 100 different paths I will consider once the sun returns to burn the time on my clock. When will it be the last time I carve a pumpkin? When will it be the last time I do it with you? I take my jack-o'-lantern outside where its candle can burn bright when the sun cannot. Soon, the mold will come to end my destruction, but at least your arms would still wrap around me, given the short amount of time we have after the jack-o'-lantern decays. How lucky it is that we don't possess.
I think I got emotional only because it ties back to my childhood memories, and I'll mention a little bit more of what triggered me to be so touched by it. But you shared a little bit before you started, but origin, inspiration, purpose behind the poem.
I talked to like someone that's been very like I've had like a really like strong connection with my sister, like my older sister. She's felt like someone who's almost been like a second mother to me. And when I was like in 6th grade or something, she went to college. So when she started like coming back, when she graduated from college this year and she came back, I don't know, it really did feel like I was like being a child again. And yeah. Um, and she said like, let's carve pumpkins, and it really just struck me.
It came across. It came across. Anyone else?
I really liked your first line. It got me hooked almost instantly about the moon being devoured, and I also really love the fact that it's about carving pumpkins, but it's also about so much more than that. And it was really touching. I really liked your poem.
It was. It was. Anyone? Carol or Ashley? Anyone before I jump back in?
Yeah, I thought the imagery in your poem was incredible, and
Yeah.
I could really tell that you had such a deep connection, not only to the poem itself, but the people that you mentioned and the images and objects that you mentioned in your poem. And it was just incredibly touching. I mean, I have an older brother myself who's away in college right now. And it was, even though this poem is personal to you and it's about someone who's really personal and close to you, it could still be used as a way to explain the feelings and the dynamic between different siblings from different families. So I really love that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
very universal in its appeal, and your affection for your sister is very poignant, and it really speaks volumes in your words.
And it, you know what, kind of tying in all of your writing, and what, you know, Alexandra just recently shared was, again, I was like, man, why am I so moved by this this poem? Because it's been so long since I've carved a pumpkin with someone, since it was a brother or a mom or a dad. So it really pulled me back there and made me feel, man, I really didn't take in those moments, you know, the way I could have. Because looking back, I'm wishing I could remember in detail the way you did. Because that was the first thing. I was like, the detail that you used describing the pumpkin. I was like, man, I forgot how that felt when your hands are in the pulp, or when you did that. I was like, oh, so that's what made me emotional. I was like, man, that was a great taking back as far as the memories were concerned.
I've never carved a pumpkin. So this now makes me think I've been missing something.
You should try it out.
Listen, this has been so amazing. We're almost at 3:15. I won't take up too much time with a Q&A in the middle right now. Do you all have, do each one of you have one more that you want to share? If not, then everyone have one more? One more? Can you? Christine says no. Alex says,
I have like a poem from like another poet that I might want to share. But
okay. Ashley, you got one? All right. Christine, did you say you had one? All right, perfect. So this will do it. We'll go Ashley, and then we'll have Alex share a poem from one of your favorite poets. I'll ask one or two questions, and then we'll close out if that's cool. All right? All right. Ashley, it's on you.
This poem is called Help Kim Find Her Diamond Earrings.
Help Kim?
Yeah, it's kind of based off of a Keeping Up with the Kardashians episode. So.
Oh, okay. Let me mute myself. Oh, there you go, Ashley. It's all.
Got it. Season 6, episode 12 of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Kim Kardashian gets thrown in the water by her now ex-husband Chris Humphries. When her fingers trail up to graze her ear, she finds that her $175,000 diamond earrings are nowhere to be found. Allow me to now reenact the following conversation, playing the roles of Kim, Courtney, and Chris. Kim opens, "My diamond earring is gone," to which Chris replies, "Honey, that's why you get insurance." Kourtney Kardashian then closes the scene saying, "Kim, there's people that are dying." At once, I somehow sympathize with Kim Kardashian, a millionaire that wears impractical earrings and Bora Bora, something that I, a less impractical person, would never do, but her feelings are what are overwhelmingly familiar to me. Kourtney's input didn't help her in that moment. Her earrings may have been lost forever, sunken deep in the sand, underwater, far away, and untouchable. She may be able to buy her earrings back. After all, she is a millionaire, but she will never be able to replicate the exact feeling she had when she was able to purchase her first pair of diamond earrings with the money she made herself. The fact that people are dying has nothing to do with her, does nothing to relieve her anguish. All it does is invalidate her experience. Someone else's pain doesn't have anything to do with you. It's not a competition. It never was to begin with. All that's changed is that Kourtney is no longer my favorite Kardashian. Thank you.
Wow. First of all, I love the sense of humor. I love the specificity in the beginning. And of course, I love the enthusiasm and expressiveness when you share it, man. That's me. Anyone else?
Yeah, I really like, I think a lot of people, when they think about poetry, it has to be like a downer, or it has to be like very like depressing and stuff. But like, it just shows that you can like have a lot of fun with it, and it still can be really good and really expressive. And I really like that about the poem.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great humor, and so different from the other pieces that you already read.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your performance and the humor, and I love that the I love that the issue you touched upon, you know, comparing experiences. It's a very important topic, I guess, and I really love how you conveyed that through humor and your vivid, dynamic performance.
Listen, and I don't want to turn this too much into like a workshop, but let me say that that was a powerful and impressive thing as well. So as you continue to work on this and write with us and grows, what the humor landed so well because you had that moment or that nucleus in there that really sent out a message that you could connect to. Like, wait a minute, okay, well, she's really saying something here. This is important to hear or understand. And then you broke with it again. And that's where the performative aspect of a poem, that the messenger as the poet, really enhances that, because now you can build up the beginning, drop it, and then boom, hit home with that message, and then bring it back up again, and people go, wow, that was amazing, but don't lose the message. So that was really good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Alexandra, you got one. I can't wait. Who, first of all, let us know the poet, the poem, and why you chose the poem, and then go ahead and share the poem.
So it's a poem from the collection Sweet Dark, by Savannah Brown. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Oh, I'm gonna write it down. No?
But I really like her poetry, and she's been a very big influence on me. So the poem I've picked from the collection is "The universe may stop expanding in 5 billion years." And this poem, like, really touched me. And it also partially inspired, at least the idea behind it, inspired the last poem I read. So here it goes nothing. The universe may stop expanding in 5 billion years, at which point time will cease to exist and I can finally stop complaining. There's a fragile world reflected in the glassy pearl of your spit left on my belly, and I'm telling you, I've never been so old. The day sucks with bleached teeth, even given the shreds of your dead rind caked under my fingernails. There's the black chasm of want expanding in my chest the way a bead of ink breaks, making me difficult to touch without an exit plan. Imagine, please, a better continuum. You say earlier doesn't feel real, and you're right. Not because there was anything exceptional about the heath in early afternoon. Not because our chins sticky with cider was a notable pip in this quivering glitch of a life, but because it was too ordinary to even dare remember. Because we'll someday ache for any regular Sunday in June, where the sun was a sure thing and breath tasted like warm grass, and there was not a single indication the cosmos would one day shut like your eyes tight with pleasure.
Wow. I wrote down the name. I'm gonna look up that. Is anyone else familiar with that poem, Savannah Brown? Okay, Ashley, Christine, are you familiar with Savannah Brown? Christine, are you familiar with Savannah? No. Okay, good. All right, so I'm not alone on that one. We got a few more minutes. We're not gonna take up all the time, but I do have a quick question. You guys, I am notes deep on all your writing. I can't just know that if I had more time, I'd be gushing another 5 minutes over every single one of the poems that you shared. But just because you guys mentioned this lately and it's being recorded, so I just want it for the time capsule's sake. What is it that you want or that you desire to accomplish with writing and with your poetry? When you sit down and you write and you kind of push it into the future, what is it that you wish to accomplish with your own literature and with your own writing? We'll go Alexandra, Ashley, then Christine.
That's like what I want to accomplish. I think I just want to create something that's just gonna like outlive me and will like continue to be read by others, hopefully. I don't know if I'll ever get to that point, but like even if like just one person like feels like impacted by it, I feel like I've done enough. I remember I got into like I wrote a poem in second grade, and I think my teacher made me present it in front of our parents at this assembly one time. And I remember afterwards, like I was in the car with my mom, and my mom was crying, and I asked her why, and she said, I just really liked your poem. And I think that was kind of like the first like real signal that like I felt like this was something I should be doing. And yeah.
Listen, and I taking it back to me, listen, that was one of my things as well. Just the flirting with immortality, that emotional immortality that, hey, I could write this and someone could be feeling what I felt centuries later based on what I wrote. I love that feeling. Okay, all right, so we're in the same boat. Ashley?
Yeah, I agree with that. And like kind of on that note, I kind of like recognize as I've written that when you perform or when you do anything with your writing, no one exactly remembers every single word that you said, but rather they hold on to that feeling that they had when you performed or when they read your writing. And so adding on to kind of like flirting with immortality and having something that outlives you, I would really want my writing to continue to resonate with people even after I'm gone. And even if they don't exactly remember the exact words that I wrote, at least they'll remember the feelings that I made them feel when I was either performing or when they read my writing. That's something that I really want to continue doing or hopefully be able to do one day.
Oh, listen, you're already doing it and it's giving me chills. That's why I was like, you're talking about what's going to happen in the future. You guys are nailing it right now. Christine.
I also wanted to. I also when I write, I kind of want it to be immortal. Like I want it to outlast me, but I also want to touch other people with my words, and because poetry, for me, poetry has touched me. It has changed me in some instances, and I kind of aspire to be that. I aspire for my words to be that for other people. And I also treat poetry as like an opportunity for my own growth. Like anytime I write, I improve. And I also, poetry is for me like a snapshot into the moments when I was writing, what I was feeling. And anytime I look back on something I wrote, it's just very, it brings back memories. And I really like having that, knowing what my past self felt and having that immortalized essentially. So yeah.
You guys are going to be here long. I joke around with it when I was saying, "Hey, let me get the hell up off the stage in the page," because they're coming, right? And when I listen to you, that's gonna say you guys are proof in the pudding that everything that I was thinking and feeling when I was young about having and holding my moment. Trust me, I'll never let that go. No one's gonna steal my moment or steal my space. But there's a joy to knowing that legacy of literature and appreciating of writing just continues to flow on, and then we all kind of feel that same connectivity to it. We have maybe like 2 more minutes, and I have 2 more quick questions. One's going to tell you guys are going to make me cry up in here. Okay, so this one's going to be quick. This is your lightning round question. 2 writers, right? One, a writer that influenced you, and one, a writer that you would suggest we all read, because Alex dropped one in. So someone who influenced you and someone you would suggest for other people to read, right? Doesn't matter poetry or literature. You got it? Ashley, excuse me. Yeah, I just already said your name. Ashley, it's on you.
Okay, someone that really influenced me, I guess it's more of a duo. It's kind of the first slam poem that I ever watched. So it's Sarah Kay and Phil Kay. Their poetry kind of taught me that this poetry existed and that I could possibly do it too. And someone that everyone should read, I guess more like watch is more appropriate, but I really, really love the screenwriter Bong Joon-ho. Of course, Parasite is really famous now, became really famous, but he also has a lot of other incredible screenwriters. And I really appreciate how he's a Korean, like me, Korean screenwriter and director who's able to talk about topics that are kind of like taboo or typically taboo in Korean culture. So yeah, those are my 2-3 people.
Listen, I've written them down too. Christine.
A writer who's influenced me is my friend. I won't name her, but she has a lot of passion for her writing, and she writes about things she cares about. Currently, she's writing an essay on why you should vote, and I'm just really impressed by her her opposite of passivity.
Okay.
And
who should we read? Who should we read? Who are you nominating?
That would be Gabriel Urbina. He's a scriptwriter for a science fiction podcast called Wolf 359, and I will call it the best audio fiction podcast I have ever listened to.
All right, Alex, go ahead and close out with that question.
Okay, so
make sure you project. There we go, so we get that volume. Go ahead.
Obviously, a writer that has influenced me is Savannah Brown, and a writer I think everyone should read is Catherine Nunberg. I don't know, like that's her name, but like it's kind of hard for me to pronounce. But she deals with like a lot of like feminist topics, and also a lot of like poems about motherhood, which is like something I'm like really like obviously as a young girl, it's something that's like in my future, and it's just like really interesting to me how she deals with that topic.
Gosh. Well, hey, thank you all for sharing your poetry, sharing your experiences, sharing what inspires you, who inspires you, and also sharing, what you read and what you're into, so we can get better by looking and reading those people as well. I'm going to turn it back over to the people of Muzeo so they can close us out. But one question that someone had asked is, where can they find your writing right now? Like they said, is this available written? So that's why I smiled to myself thinking, you guys are talking about the future, people connecting. People want your writing right now. Have any of you all submitted for it to be published? Do you have it in chapbooks? Can they get it at the school? Like, where do we get your stuff in writing? And if not, then you need a website. Go ahead. Anybody got something published?
Well, like don't have much of my poetry published, but I am actually Christina and I were both in we're both in the school newspaper, so like we're gonna have articles published on our school website, like oagamut.com. So yeah.
Christine's like, yeah, way to drop in that plug. Ashley?
Well, I recently got published by this wonderful organization called Robbie's Hope that's dedicated to tackling teen mental illness and things like that. So I have 2 poems there, and I also have an Instagram where I like occasionally upload my poems. And so, yeah, those are 2 places where you can find my writing.
Listen, and I know, in consideration of privacy for everyone, we weren't able to put everyone's full name out there and stuff like that. But we'll make sure that there's a way that we can put people in contact on ways that they can funnel in and get more writing from you all or hear from you all. If not, from our next Voices and Vibrations session. You guys have set it off. I'm sure from here, this may be a packed thing. I don't know how we're going to do it. Again, you guys have just set the tone and the standard for it. But thank you so much. Amazing. I'll give it back to Carol to close us out.
Well, this has been wonderful. And if there is a way that we can get some of the writing, we'll find a way that we can have it on our website so that it's accessible to more people. So maybe you and I can talk about how that can look in the future. Yeah. I've enjoyed listening and getting the goosies from your writing. So thank you all so very much for sharing your talent this afternoon. As a reminder, this has been recorded and will be available on Facebook Live, and it will also be on our website. The viewing audience, let us know if the programs that we're presenting to you are resonating and that you're getting value from this. We want to make sure that whatever programs we bring are relevant to the community. I'd like to thank our poets, Christine, Ashley, and Alexandra. Yeah. More snaps, more snaps, more snaps. Amazing. And thank you, Marcus. This has been a wonderful collaboration between the Muzeo and yourself. And this has been a very meaningful sharing of beautiful work by these very courageous and talented young poets. They've shared their voices and their imagery and their talent with us this afternoon. So thank you so very much. And I'd like to thank the viewing audience who have taken time on a Sunday afternoon to share an hour and a half with us and listen to the talents that came from these young poets. So until the very next time, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.